Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad you are here and we are in for a nice ride tonight. So, like I told you before, a little bit about myself. I am married and my husband is pretty awesome. His name is Stanley. And today I just want to talk a little bit about how we met and how God guided that whole situation in our lives, right? One of the objectives for my channel is to make sure that you get a good idea of the person that you are watching. I don't want to just dump a bunch of stuff. I want to develop a relationship with you and I want you to know me. And so I'm sharing my life with you. So I'm getting you caught up to speed with the things that have already happened, and then we will move as to where I am now. All right. So as far as my husband, I remember, how old was I? I was maybe like 23, 24 when I realized that I didn't want to do the single thing anymore, right? I was living alone, had my own apartment, I was working, everything was going pretty good, but I just got to a place in my life when I wanted to settle down. And so I remember one night in particular, I came home from the club and I had a good time. It was okay. And when I got home, first of all, one of the things that kind of tipped me off was that I had to drive myself home afterwards. And I don't very much like driving. And so after I drove myself home, I remember I got into bed and I was like, God, I'm kind of tired of coming home alone. I'm looking for my person. And I remember praying, asking God for a very specific list of what I wanted in a mate, and I left it at that. And after I made that prayer, I was waiting on God to bring this prayer request to fruition for me. So I was working 3 jobs, I think, at the time because I have issues and just doing my own thing. Anyways, fast forward one day, like I said in the other video, this was at the place where I hadn't yet really committed back to full relationship with God. I was still praying, talking to him every once in a while, for the important stuff, right? But I hadn't really fully committed myself to having a relationship with God, going back to church and stuff like that. Anyways, so during that whole process of getting myself reacclimated with God, I started going back to church. And when I started going back to church, and I'm going to say this, one of the things I love about God is how when he opens one door, it's never just one door. It's never just one thing. It's always a domino effect, right? So in me going back to church, it was December 31st. And I went to church because, like I told you before, that's what I had come to do for my parents, really. Like my mom wanted to make sure she saw me on December 31st. She wanted to make sure that she saw me on the holidays. And so I used to go to her church during those times. So December 31st, I go to church, and full disclosure, I was dressed for church with my little party clothes in my bag so I can go party afterwards. And I saw this guy and he was different. How was he different? Growing up in church, it was a lot of girls, not a lot of guys. And the guys that were at our church were my cousins. So not very good for me in the prospect of a husband, right? But the mothers that go to the church would drag their sons to church with them on holidays. So that's when we were able to kind of see a little bit of eye candy. Other than that, it was just the boys you grew up with and nobody was looking for them. So I went to church and I saw this guy. And one of the things that immediately grabbed my attention, other than the fact that he was gorgeous, is that he was worshiping. And I remember when we grew up in church, whenever the boys would come with their moms, they were more interested in us than they were interested in the Lord. We were kind of like, checking for each other everywhere. But this guy was different. He was actually worshiping. He was like in full hands up mode, eyes closed. And I'm like, that's different. And we ended up meeting, ended up talking. Our families, well, my family ended up embarrassing us. Well, not embarrassing us, embarrassing me, because they kind of threw us together in a very embarrassing situation. And I thought, you know what? They screwed this up for me. Fast forward a few months later, he calls me. We started talking, and like they say, the rest is history. We've been married for 17 years, and like I said before, we have 3 kids. And I just kind of want to talk about our relationships, the way that I kind of knew that he was my husband, and where we are now. So after we met and we started dating, things weren't easy. You feel like sometimes when you pray for something and God gives it to you, and it should be easy, right? Let me tell you, I met this guy, things were going great, and then everything hit us all at once. This man got hit with depression. We were not getting along the way that we needed to get along. He was pulling away from me, and I had an attitude, let's be honest. Like, I'm way too cute for this. I don't have time for foolishness, because I had built up this wall around me where I'm like, God, I'm looking for a husband, and I don't want to entertain fools. I don't want to entertain people that are going to be wasting my time. And so when I met my husband, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder. So when things started kind of going sideways, I'm like, I don't really know if I want to do this. But one of the things I did is I said, God, if this is the man for me, I'm willing to put in the fight. If this is the man for me, I'm willing to put in the work. I do not want to waste any more time. And I know some people might be watching this like, girl, you only 23, 24, like seriously. But that's where I was at the time. Like, I don't want to waste any time. I really want a husband. I really want to settle down. I don't want to entertain the wrong kind of people, and by entertaining the wrong kind of people, then keeping the right person out of my life, right? So I said, God, is this the man that you have for me? Is this going to be my husband? I need you to tell me clearly. I need you to make it plain, because if he's not, I need to cut him off, because I don't have time for foolishness. So what I did is my cousin, I talked to her, and she said she had a similar situation when she was going to get married, and what she did is she fasted. So I fasted, and I asked God, like, seriously, sir, I need to know, is this my husband? God confirmed, and I said, once I know this is the person for me, I'm okay with engaging in the fight. If it's not, then I need to know so that I can let him go. So I ended up fasting, and God confirmed without a shadow of a doubt that this was going to be my person. Now, for all of us that are looking to get married, just because God confirms it's going to be your person doesn't mean it is going to go smoothly, because our courtship certainly did not go smoothly. Like I said, he got hit with depression just out of nowhere. If you ever get to see my husband, and you will, because I'll do a video with him. My husband is the happiest person I know. Always happy, always cheerful. Got hit with depression. We're fighting. We can't communicate. We can't understand each other. And I recognize now that that was the hand of the enemy to try to keep us from being together, right? So fast forward, we are married, we are living life, and it hasn't always been easy. If I have to be honest with you, being a wife kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, because the idea that I had about wife is not the right idea. I don't know about you, but I struggled for a long time with that idea of submission. For me, it was like, you cuss me out. Like, I would rather you tell me all kinds of like bad words than tell me you need to submit to a man. And part of that is because growing up with my mom is a strong woman, was a strong woman. You couldn't tell her nothing. And it didn't help that my dad, who loved us, and my parents were still married, but my dad lived in Haiti and we lived here. So we were raised by our mom, very strong woman, very independent woman. So I struggled in the beginning of my marriage with the idea of submission. Like, you're not gonna tell me what to do. Like, this is not how this is gonna play out, because I know how to make my own money. I know how to take care of myself. I've been taking care of myself. I've been at my own money. I don't need you to do anything for me that I can't do for myself. How rude that I am, especially after I had done prayed and asked God for a man, and then he gives me the man, and now I'm like, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what to do. So I struggled in the beginning of my marriage because I didn't want to submit. I struggled in the beginning of my marriage because I had all these wrong ideas in my mind about what marriage should be, what marriage could be. And over the course of my relationship, not only with my husband, but with God, and this is why I love God. God has put me in the position to be a better wife. I still have so much more to learn. I still have so much further to go. But here are a few things that I've learned in my marriage over the course of the year. Submission is okay. One of the key things God told me that helped me with being submissive is that it's not the husband asking for the submission, but it's God, right? And if you are certain that God has given you this person, you can submit to that person, because where you may have missed certain things, God doesn't miss a beat. If you can confirm that God chose a spouse for you, then you can trust the leading, the choosing of God, that he picked the person that is submission worthy. Because a lot of women, we have this issue where we're like, is he even submission worthy? I don't know if you've ever said that, but I know I've said it on multiple occasions. Is he even submission worthy? If God has picked him for you, of course he's submission worthy, right? The other thing that I've learned about in marriage is this: things are not always what they seem. People are not always what they seem, right? And an example of that would be, for years, one of the biggest issues I had with my husband, and I realized later it wasn't even an issue with him, it was an issue with me. One of the issues that I had was, I feel like you don't see me. And I don't know how many wives have said this to their husbands. I feel like you don't see me. I feel like you don't hear me. And we suffer internally because we have this narrative going on in our minds that our husband doesn't see us. But the truth of the matter is, I realized that growing up the way that I grew up, with the childhood traumas that I had, I never felt seen. Like, that was me, right? And so even when my husband would try to do certain things to show that he sees me, it was never the right activity. I don't know if you can relate. Like, he would do A and I would be like, why didn't you do B? Then he would do B and then I'd be like, why didn't you do C? He would do C and then I'd be like, why didn't you do D? And the cycle would continue, right? And I've learned to deal with myself, and some wives are not gonna like this. There's a lot of problems that we have with our husbands. It's an internal problem that we first have to deal with. And so that's a second lesson that I've learned in my marriage, is that I have to deal with my own internal struggles. I have to deal with my own internal issues. I have to deal with me, right? And once I deal with me and I really know who I am, then I can be the best version of myself in a marriage, right? Again, it's not always your husband's fault. Sometimes you have to look within. Third lesson that I've learned in marriage is that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay. It's okay. Let me tell you something. Growing up Haitian, we don't do vulnerable. Vulnerability always used to translate, at least for me, as weakness, right? And what you're not gonna do is catch me in a place of weakness. And I want to encourage you today that it's okay to be vulnerable. Like, imagine, for me, I struggled so much with being vulnerable with my husband because I was just afraid of being disappointed. And I even put certain things in my mind that were not even true about him, simply because I was building up a wall. I don't know if you're building up a wall in your mind about who you can trust and who you can share with, but I want you today to take an internal look at yourself and see, is it really an issue with that person, or is it something that you yourself need to work out, right? So again, things I've learned in marriage is that it's okay to be vulnerable with your spouse, right? Especially if you know, like for me, in hindsight, I'm like, how crazy must I have been to have asked God for somebody, to prayed and ask God that, and God confirmed that this is the person, and then I still had those issues. I realized that in hindsight, I needed to do some work in me. So maybe the first thing we should talk about is working on yourself first before you get married. So that way, you're not having the issues that I had. Take the time to really get to know you. Take the time to really get to know your triggers. Take the time to really understand how you operate, how you work, and take the time to deal with the trauma that you dealt with even as a child, as an adult, and make sure that when you are about to walk in a marriage relationship, you're really ready to surrender, to submit to that person. You're really ready to acknowledge when you are wrong. Let me tell you something. I love God, because if it wasn't the fact that I had God, sometimes I would apologize to my husband and I'm like, it's because of God. If it wasn't for God, I would not be saying sorry right now, right? Be ready to apologize. Be ready to take ownership of, certain things, but you can't take ownership of things when you're always in that victimized state. So if you're looking to get married, I would encourage you to ask the Lord to pick somebody for you. I feel, even though I had my list, one of the things I always say to people is this: I did make a list, and for a good part of the list was answered, but the most important things about my husband, the things that I cherish about him the most, are things that I didn't even have the wisdom to pray for. And so if you're looking for a spouse, I would say ask the Lord to pick somebody for you. Of course, you can give God a list, but I feel like his list is always going to be so much better than what we can come up with. The things that I cherish, like I said, the most about Stanley Jess is those things that I didn't even ask God for, but God knew that I would need. So ask the Lord for somebody that can do life with you, because the 30-year-old you is not the 40-year-old you, it's not the 50-year-old you, it's not the 20-year-old you. And we evolve, and God can give us that person that we're going to evolve with. Secondly, be ready to do the work. Marriage is not easy, but it's absolutely worth it. Be ready to be humble, be ready to submit, be ready to not put your trauma in the forefront of your relationship. I really do pray that this time together was a blessing to you. And I really pray that, again, for those people that are looking for a husband, to take some time with God so that he can lead and guide you in the right person, but so he can lead and guide you in your own path of delivery, right? Where you are actually ready to accept somebody in your life. And for those of us that are already married, if you're finding that you're having challenges in your marriage, maybe take a look inside, right? Because it's so easy to point the finger at somebody else, not so easy to point the finger back at us. And sometimes, believe it or not, ladies, we are the problem. I had to learn that the hard way. And so I pray that you don't have to learn the lesson the hard way. Take a look at you. Take a look at, your habits, your traumas, your issues, your situations, and see where you can make a change, and be willing to be teachable, be willing to be corrected, like to put your hand in this partnership and do the things that you do, and you will see a difference in your marriage. Like, I can see such a difference in the way that we communicate. I can see such a difference in the way that we interact. I can see such a difference in the way that our relationship is when I've done the work on myself. And not only done the work on myself, but try to do marriage God's way. And one of the big ways we do marriage God's way is to be at that place of complete surrender, not only to our husbands, but to God. I really do pray that this video blessed you. I am excited to talk to you next week about my children. In the meantime, have an excellent week. God bless you.